This is the Bitcoin Otter Radio Show.
Oh my God, I love you so much!
On 97.7 FM, The City.
Blessings and good fortune, everybody. Hello out there. Lots of good things to talk about. Some not so good things, I understand. But it's all going to get worked out in the end. Now, I want to tell you, we're coming at you from the McAllen Creative Incubator on 97.7 KCYP, The City, out of McAllen, Texas. Yes, and yes. So, we're also going out on Facebook. We're going out on TuneIn Radio. We're going out on YouTube and Radio Garden. Okay, I was on Radio Garden. I listened to, as you may or may not know, my old hometown was Buffalo, New York. So out of Niagara Falls, they got this talk show I listen to every now and again on Radio Garden. Yeah, you can go anywhere in the world and listen to talk shows, music, whatever you want to listen to on the radio with Radio Garden and TuneIn Garden. But hey, you do you, right? Anyway, today we have an interesting turn of events, and it's basically me having not prepared whatsoever for this show. I know that's not the case. Usually you see a pile of notes that I have that have compiled over the week and so forth. But storms hit certain places. It's isolated sometimes. So the Odd household was hit with a storm of let's say uncontrollable circumstances. So I didn't have the chance. I had other things that I needed to do. And what happened there was, well, picking up my youngest from high school, all kinds of stuff that you really don't want to hear about. Suffice it to say, I will be depending on you all to help carry the load a little bit. Now, as you well know, I can jabber, and run on forever. But what I want to talk about is what you want to talk about. So we've got Joe behind us using the Restream catch-all. So if your comments are coming from YouTube, he'll see it. If they're coming from the Christopher Ott page or the Bitcoin Otter page, whatever, he'll see it, or the 97.7 KCYP, whatever feed it comes from, Lord willing, we will receive it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over these amounts, and I'm just going to go from memory. So think that, see, they hammered the markets. I don't know. I don't look at the Wall Street casino. So if your 401k went up, God bless you. If it didn't, God bless you also, because I don't really know. I don't pay attention to the Wall Street casino. And they got all of us wrapped up in that with our 401ks. So in my attempt to escape it, I invest in Bitcoin. That's, this already. So with Bitcoin, I think it was at 111 earlier before the show. It's going up a bit, but they crushed it. They tamped it down very heavily. Also, silver, it was 51 something. Gold was 44,100 something. Ladies and gentlemen, they can only do this for so long. It's not going to work out well for the banks. So prepare yourself. Have what you would like in your bank and not feel insecure about in your bank. Okay? I am not at all a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I think would be prudent. You don't have to be prudent, certainly not to my standards, okay? So what you might want to do is figure out a way to get that money out of the bank and put it into something that's not going to lose money if the bank goes jumblies up, okay? If it happens, that's not going to be good for any of us. But here's what's on the way. A financial change. Of what magnitude? How will it come about? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think anybody knows, even the ones that we may pay a lot of, and I know I don't, may pay a lot of money to organize and run our money, which I don't think is wise to begin with, but who am I, right? I don't think anybody really knows. Perhaps some in, let's just say, the counterinsurgency force that is going to, and already to some degree has wrested us away from this predatory Federal Reserve System. That, ladies and gentlemen, is nearly a guarantee. However, how it's going to happen, on what timeline, you got me. I don't have any answer for you. I am sorry. Now, what I would like to do and not forget is get us on the verse of the day. So we start off the show and our musings in a right attitude. So this is found in 1 Thessalonians 3:12. May the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other and for everyone else, just as ours does for you. Yeah, that was a letter from Paul to the Thessalonians saying, hey, times are hard. What we definitely need now is not money. It's not better politics. It's love. We need to care about each other. So let's do that. Now, one of the things that I know, even though I didn't, write out all my notes today, we can talk about is this shutdown. I don't know if it's affecting a lot of you. You know who you are. You know who I am. I don't go public about my occupation on Facebook for many reasons. And if you know me, then you know why. I'm not trying to keep it a secret. If I see you on the street and you ask me, hey, Otter, I don't know you that well. What do you do? I'm not afraid to tell you, but I'm not going to do that on a social media platform, especially Facebook. I mean, I'm sorry. I got on Facebook, and you probably don't sometimes like Facebook, and maybe always don't like Facebook. But the fact of the matter is, it's big, and we can get to a lot of people. Sue, glad to see you're watching. Dad, if you're watching, a big hello to you. And I hope all is going well over there in FLA. Yeah, I know they scrapped the A while back, but I like to say it because, well, it reminds me of a line from Slapshot. Oh, that's good coffee. Now, what I would like to talk about is what you want to talk about. However, as I said, this shutdown thing, we don't know how far it's going to go. I think I've already mentioned it, that according to CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, there is a window that is 60 days in duration when it comes to furloughs and when it comes to individual employees of the government and agencies of government. Quick reminder is that in the Codified Federal Regulations, it says that if 60 days have passed in the career of an individual employee of the government and they have been on furlough, they can be part of a reduction in force, a RIF, R-I-F, reduction in force, and they can be let go. The same applies for the agency that person works for. So there is an agency that has been on furlough and I didn't read too deeply into it, but I would imagine that it is a non-exempt status, meaning very important agencies are exempt from the furlough. Used to be that Republicans and Democrats would punish these very important employees by not paying them as well as not paying the non-essential employees. You might say, what's a non-essential employee, Otter, and why do we have them? Thank you very much. I'll get there in a minute. But for the essential employees, the people that they're not there, maybe somebody will take the nuclear football and press the button. I'm exaggerating, of course, but there are essential employees. There are people that work with national security that if there was a shutdown and communists, let's say, like in this instance, shut down the government, wow, wouldn't that be a perfect opportunity to attack when all the government is off? Yeah, it would. So that doesn't happen. So essential personnel, traditionally with Republicans and Democrats, were forced to work but not paid. Yes, they would get a paycheck at the end, aggregate of their paychecks that were never doled out during the furlough. But in that time, depending on how long it goes, you could have a mortgage payment, you could have a car note, you could have electric bills, you could have food bills, you got a family. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. So the Republicans and the Democrats punished federal employees while they were on furlough status, regardless of whether they had to go to work in the case of essential employees, national security and all that, or they were support personnel that could and were not necessary every day. They would sit home. I don't know if they got paid or not, but the fact of the matter is, that was the way they did things. Now, with Donald Trump, who, most people see him as a Republican, whatever, he's just not establishment, right? He's not a rhino by any stretch, and he's certainly not as loved by the Republican establishment because they're as crooked as the Democrat establishment. maybe not as crooked, but they're pretty crooked. The Republicans are very crooked, right? Now, the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump has broken from that. His administration and the people that recruited him to be president, they have broken from the tradition of not paying the essential workers. So we've already heard about the military, but now we have essential federal workers such as Border Patrol agents and customs agents. Imagine if they didn't show up for work, right? Now they always have. Traditionally, they always have shown up for work. They've shown up for you. They've shown up for me, shift after shift after shift, 24/7 throughout all the furloughs without being paid. Part of the strategy, ladies and gentlemen, and this is me, I'm not putting anyone into my jackpot, but part of the strategy of the Bolsheviks, part of the strategy of the communists, they call them Democrats now, but part of the strategy of the collectivists, the Marxists, they call them Democrats now, but part of the strategy of these people was to get such a discouraged morale in these essential workforces that they might even just walk off the job. So you can imagine that if ICE agents were going around getting pepper sprayed or whatever they're having to either do or receive, getting rammed by vehicles in Portland or wherever they are, being doxxed so that their families are being harassed on their front lawn, all these things that the communists are doing against ICE agents. After who knows how long of not being paid, the usual suspects were going to hope that, hey, they'll walk off the job. So our constituents, illegal aliens, illegal voters, the constituents of the communists, the Democrats, would then be able to count on their security here in the nation because there's nobody to kick them out. That's exactly what I believe was part of the strategy of this shutdown. That if they waited long enough, military National Guard troops would walk off the job. Customs agents would just walk off the bridge, the port. Border Patrol agents would no longer man the front lines. All these things they were hoping for until that guy who really doesn't get along with Republicans, really is hated by the Democrats, said, you know what? It's been in the rules for a long time that these essential workers can receive a paycheck, but you know what? Nobody else paid them during a furlough. I'm going to pay them, says Donald Trump. Now, I definitely understand why these communists hate him, because he puts America, its well-being, and its security first. I think that policy is called America First, which is what communists hate, because they want them first. They want destruction first. They want discord first, dissent, all kinds of things. But the well-being of America must always come last, because that is what needs to be destroyed in their books. In their books. This is a concerted effort to overthrow the government that you and I voted for, the decisions that you and I wanted implemented. 77 million of us decided that, and that's the official amount. So with fraud taken out of the equation, probably over 80, I would imagine, million of us voted for this. And the people in Portland and the people in Seattle, Washington, D.C., and all that mess, they, ladies and gentlemen, don't want what's best for America. Sue says, I think Congress and the president should chip in to take care of these people's pay. Thank you, Sue. In case people didn't know, these crazy politicians are making their money. Their check is arriving. The Eagle dumps into their account every 2 weeks. Now, it's their fault that they're out of work. Maybe they should stop getting paychecks as well until they do their jobs and stop their political games. I bet they would figure it out quick. I bet so too. But here's another problem, Sue, and I think you know this. Their salary is a pittance compared to what they make on insider trading, kickbacks, bribes, right? Look at, and these memes are out there if you care to look. The net worth of a person prior, and we'll give the Obamas, maybe the Bushes, maybe the Clintons, all those people, the Bidens especially, right? They had a certain net worth when they went into office, and that net worth was exponentially greater when they left. You compare that to Donald Trump. One, he doesn't take a salary. Two, like this renovation, we can get into that in a little bit, the renovation of the White House that every president does. It's privately funded. He's paying for some. He's got donors for some. You and I are not paying for any of that. Okay? But we did pay $350 million for Obama to put in a basketball court. Yeah, and that was vaunted as great stuff on the mainstream media. Sue says, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, they don't really need that little salary. Another thing that I'll inform you all about is that somehow, some way in the annals and the bowels, if you will, of federal regulations, there was placed a pay cap on federal employees. And if I am correct, and I'm not saying that I am, you guys can look this up, the determination and the numbers of where that pay cap, that limit on federal agents, if you will, federal employees arrive at is commensurate with the youngest person in Congress. So if the youngest person in Congress makes such an amount, then any federal employee, including the ones that work overtime, including the ones that work night shift, including the ones that work the holidays, including the ones that work in the rain, they work in the snow, that whatever they do, those people could never make as much as a congressman or woman because that's the way they want it. Now, that is still into effect, as far as I know. And the fact of the matter is, these, we're on Facebook. There might be kids listening. I don't know, but I won't use the real word that I want to use for politicians. But again, Joe, we do need a spittoon here because when I say things like politician, let me get a drink. All right, crystal clear water. Sue says they do make the laws hand in hand with the loopholes. Of course, and the loopholes are always for them. Always for them. And they're cronies, right? So you get a loophole for you. How about a stock tip for me, says Pelosi. Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out. It has, to the tune of millions, maybe hundreds of millions for that family. I don't know. Fact of the matter is, there's a shutdown. And to my understanding, what's going on here is, with the big, beautiful bill that passed, the Republicans were able to gain some concessions. We're able to cut some fat, trim some fat in the government and so forth. We no longer paid tens of millions of dollars to study the sexuality of a toad in Madagascar. Things of that nature. We were not trying to change mice from, a female mouse to a male mouse. We were not giving education on abortion to women in the Sahara Desert. Those kind of things, which if you even have half a brain, and I know, if you've got degrees covering your wall, you might not understand this. But that money really doesn't go to the Saharan women. It really doesn't go to the mice that need to be changed from male to female. It doesn't go to the toad to study why he's gay. That money doesn't go there, ladies and gentlemen. In case you are well educated and have had hours and days and years of your life stolen by problovating professors. If that has happened to you, I'm sorry, but put on a hockey helmet and come play with us. The fact of the matter is this: that money was always meant to be stolen. That money was always meant to come back into, at least a percentage of it, the pockets of the people that voted to pass the theft of our tax dollars. That money was always earmarked for fraud, always earmarked for crime, always, and always. Okay? If they really wanted to help people, let's say in Africa, do you think they'd maybe drill some wells? Do you think they'd maybe put in some desalination plants? That would just take the salt water and make it regular water? Do you think they'd sink some money into that if they really cared? Yeah, they would. But they don't, because they don't care. Okay? All they want is to steal from you and me. So, the Republicans, to my knowledge, my limited knowledge, got rid of a lot of that stuff. And now the Dems are really hurt. They're really hurt. I mean, how are they going to pay their Trans-Tifa people? How are they going to pay BLM? How are they going to pay the gang members, the Tren de Aragua? How are they going to pay those people to riot in the streets if they don't have slush money? Ladies and gentlemen, you have to realize, throughout history, this has been the playbook. The usual suspects have done this again and again and again, overthrown countries. Okay, the three-letter agencies have a 1983 blueprint that works just perfect with what they're going to do with this No Kings thing. We can get into that later. But the fact of the matter is, this is just a carbon copy of what was done in many other nations. Let's just get into one. The Bolsheviks. We know who the Bolsheviks really were, and I can't say it on Facebook. And if you're wondering, Otter, what are you talking about? Just think about the people, a specific nation. Maybe that'll be a good enough hint that you cannot criticize. You cannot criticize it on any level. You cannot speak ill of it. Because if so, you will be censored and you will be called a specific pejorative term. Yes, yes, and yes. And I think you're getting what I'm trying to throw out your way. There's a certain nation we cannot. You could make fun of Germany. You could say what you want about Britain. You can do what you want about Scandinavia. You could say all kinds of nasty stuff about those Norwegians. Oh, you could hate Russia all you want. You could even probably say something bad about Ukraine. You could say something about Libya, but you can't say something bad about this one country. One country that so much ownership exists in the halls of our bureaucracy. So many lobbyists, so many dual citizens in our very halls of governance to this nation that we cannot mention. We cannot tell you what the name of this nation is, because if we did, we would be canceled. We would be in all ways slandered. Sue says, what the heck happened to the East Wing of the White House? He wants a ballroom? Please tell me that we're not paying for it, because I could really use another bathroom in my house and I should have went into politics. Well, I don't know that you should have went into politics, Sue, and you probably could use another bathroom. I understand most Americans can, but I will tell you, because it's the truth, that you're not paying for it. It is funded by the Trumps and it's funded by private donors. Here's the difference, and I'm glad you asked that. Here's the difference about the East Wing of the White House. It's being demolished and how it's, on the front pages of everything. Here's the first thing. It's a distraction. It's a distraction because the usual suspects know that the longer the American people focus on the shutdown that they created, the more impatient they're going to be. So they need distractions. The best one is a war. But this president keeps making peace. And they hate that. They hate that people are not being thrown in the meat grinder. They can't stand it. They want death. They want all kinds of mayhem. They want bullets flying because they're the ones that own the company that builds the bullets. The bullets, they make the bullets. They make the bombs and the drones and the nastiness and all that thing. Remember the song by the Cranberries, the Zombies, and the tanks. And I can't do Dolores O'Riordan. God rest in peace, ma'am. I can't do that, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So it's being paid for by the Trumps and private donors. Now, one of the things that they won't tell you is that many presidents have renovated the White House. Another thing they won't tell you is that when they did that, they did it for their own personal reasons, right? Obama put a basketball court in. Thank you, Joe. I want to say that, I don't know, there was another, I think Clinton put something in there. I think it went into the Monica Lewinsky wing. He did something. He put something somewhere. So I can't remember what Clinton did. But I want to say probably Bush did. Probably the Bushes. They did things, right? But that was always on your dime. That was always what the public had to pay. In fact, New Scum, okay, in that other country there that's attached to us on the west side, California, right? He is doing a renovation to the governor's mansion, and all the Californians get to pay for that. I think Tim Walz or somebody like that, another, collectivist, Marxist, person like that is doing it in their governor's mansion. ladies and gentlemen, again, distraction. Yeah, well, I don't know, Sue. I don't think you would have been able to, live with yourself if you were I'm not going to use that word on Facebook because another thing. Check this out, ladies and gents. I just found out today because I'm, going through all the craziness of the Facebook, the morass of Facebook. I found out that I have been flagged since November 15th of 2024 with inciting violence. Ladies and gentlemen, if you watch this show, if you even look at my statements, I do not incite violence. In fact, I, of course, am not a pacifist, but I am always trying to figure a non-violent solution to just about anything. Now, the military exists for a reason, and they're probably going to need to get violent, but not me, not you. Why? Right? So they flagged one of my posts in which they claim I incited violence a year ago, and that's why we haven't been seeing as much, participation as we have. So, Sue, thank you for showing up. I know a lot of you don't or are not able to watch this live. I have my favorite, and I flatter myself to think that the Bitcoin Otter show might be anybody's favorite. Please don't think I'm saying that, but I do know that I find it tough to watch or listen to live podcasts myself. I've got a life and all that. So a lot of the watching or the listening of this show that we put on every week is done offline or not live. So I understand that. But the fact of the matter is what we have going on now is craziness. Yet we're living through it. But as I just articulated, okay, to the lovely Mrs. Joe tonight, who stopped by and gave our favorite radio producer a Whataburger meal. A shout out to Liz if she's watching. But our Joe behind the cameras is well fed because his lovely wife came in with some Whataburger to help him out on a Thursday evening. And that was awesome. Now, hey, Barry, how's it going, brother? So we know that the way of things in this nation seems crazy. It seems out of hand. It seems out of control. But the fact of the matter is, there is, I hate to use this term because, politicians use it, but there is an adult in the room. And I'm not going to say it's President Trump. I'm not going to say that. And not to say that he can't be that guy because he's creating peace everywhere throughout the world. What I'm saying is there is a force for good in America. First of all, the only true source is God himself. Second of all, our founding fathers were wise enough, as imperfect and as I'm sure crazy and sinful they were, because we all are on one degree or another. They were intelligent enough to base our system on God's system. Now, we all know that there's no national religion, and thank God for that, right? Thank God for that. Look at what has happened with denominations. It's just in the Christian religion. Things have gone askew, if you will. So we don't need a national religion by any means. But what we have is a nation built on the premise that people can rule themselves. You and I know, if we're Christians, that only works if God rules you and I, if God rules us. Because even the founding fathers said that this form of governance can only work with a moral civilian society. That's the only place it can work. So if you have people inundating our shores with illegal aliens, having them in concentrated areas so that they get the population of illegally present people in that certain district, and especially if they give them IDs, they can now vote and change the nation itself. Okay, that is an end to a means to an end. And the end is the destruction of America as we know it. We see that. We see it happening all the time, and nations all around the world. Europe, I'm afraid Europe might even be lost because they don't have a constitution the way we do. They don't have God-given rights the way we do, because as our founding documents were written, our rights do not come from government. The government does not issue us rights. In fact, the Declaration of Independence was one thing, and the Bill of Rights was another. The Bill of Rights is a list of limits upon government. It's not what government has to do for us. No, no, and no. It is not that, right? I don't care what professors bloviate. I'm telling you right now, as a constitutionalist, and I am competent, one, because I'm an American, two, because I know how to read. Okay? So all this, fallacy, this logical fallacy, appeal to authority, get out of here. I know the Constitution. Maybe not as much as someone who studies it every day, but I know that God gave us our rights. Government can only be limited and needs to be limited, right? So what has happened in our society is we have become dependent upon government, unfortunately. And a large portion of our society is just waiting for that next government handout. Joe mentioned earlier, founded on Christianity. Thank you, Barry, for two things. One, for recognizing that. And two, for not making this modern mockery of a term, Judeo-Christian. That, ladies and gentlemen, is not something we want to anymore repeat. That came from the Schofield Bible group. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, if you want dirt on that, if you want the sauce, as it were, hit me up on Bitcoin Otter at secure.com. Okay? Now, we're in the midpoint of our show. I don't know how much longer we're going to go. It depends on how much stuff you guys want to talk about. But I want to tell you that we're going on the airwaves live, 97.7 FM, KCYP, the city, out of McAllen, Texas. We are here broadcasting to you on Facebook Live. We are going out on YouTube. We're going out on TuneIn Radio and Radio Garden from live from the McAllen Creative Incubator. I've told you before, I'll tell you again, lots of artsy-fartsy people in here and me. So you are welcome, Barry. You are very welcome, because the fact of the matter is this whole thing of mixing, and I don't fear anything because God is my Savior. But I am reluctant because, again, there is one nation you cannot criticize. There is one certain religion you can't talk about unless it is in lauding and flowery terms. So I'm not going to bring up that religion or that nation, because I'll tell you right now, the religion is not, definitely not, an ethnic guarantee. Remember, there are converts to just about every religion in the world. Just because you are a certain religion doesn't mean you're a certain nationality. Okay? But I might even be transgressing the rules because I am not mentioning the name yet. There might be somebody out there that is not overly institutionalized / educated that is getting exactly what I'm saying. And if my speech becomes too clear, I believe that I would be and I am, therefore I am. Like, exactly. It's a great quote from Popeye. I am what I am. Thank goodness, says Sue, for the competing philosophies between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, hence the Bill of Rights. Amen, sister. I'll give you a great amen on that, because, and this is for all those people out there that scream unity, unity, unity. Our founding fathers weren't united in all of their ideas, thankfully, because we are not united in all of our ideas. We only have to have a certain amount of touchstones, so to speak, things that we can agree upon so that we can live a civilized life together without violence, without discord, great discord. And if there is discord, well, then take it to court. Let's find a system by which we don't have to kill each other to settle differences. So yes, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, they each had points that were very valid, and they aired them out in various publications. And some of them had to do so under the auspices of an alias, an AKA, a pen name, if you will. Because back in that day, the societal gathering places were pubs, and there were public places. And if you went to a certain public place and you passed out your writing and somebody knew who you were, well, then you could be censored. Your home could be attacked. Your work could be, scuttled in some way. They'll go to your publisher and tell them, don't publish this guy anymore. Well, the same thing is done now, right? It's easier because no one has to really see you or even leave their parents' basement, and they can censor you, or even more nefarious, their government office. They can just censor you from there, right? Or like Facebook, where they claim that I incited violence when I most certainly did not, in any way, shape, or form, do such a thing. I commented on the violent actions of communists, okay? And they were doing things. And when I pointed that out, Facebook was rankled. Yes, they were rankled. So what I think we're seeing now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll go back briefly to the point about that renovation in the White House. It's merely a distraction, because the longer this, as I like to call it, it's not my term, the Schumer shutdown, the longer this occurs, the less firm is the ground that the collectivists, the Marxists, the communists are standing on, and the more Brutus. No, not Brutus. It was Popeye that said, "I am what I am." Right? The big forearms and stuff. That was Popeye, I think. I don't think it was Brutus. Brutus was Olive Oil's squeeze, right? Or she was his. So Sue says, anti-federalists were afraid that a strong central government would try to take over. Silly, right? Yeah, isn't it? So after this, and hopefully this will be the catalyst for Donald Trump to get rid of things like the Department of Education, just like our buddy there in Argentina, Javier Milei, had his board and had Department of Education, Departamento de Educación, and he scraped it. He just tore it off. Afuera! For our English-speaking friends, that is out of here. Afuera! And he got rid of all these departments, all these agencies, and that's what our president is doing. And the commies hate it. But they don't know what else to do. They're in a quandary. They don't completely know what they're going to do. They don't know how to ruin the U.S. in a way that doesn't make them look like they're ruining the U.S. And you know how that works. Barry says it's a vanity project. Oh, okay. Perhaps. But let me put it into this perspective, Barry. A vanity project to build a ballroom. As we all know, Donald Trump, Donnie. Yeah, like I just had a beer with a guy, right? Hey, Donnie. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. Yeah, what are you doing here? You're going to renovate? You're going to bust it out? I want an invitation here, Donnie. No, I did not speak to the president yet. The fact of the matter is, he's doing that for posterity. Is that posterity is the people ahead of you, right? So the people ahead of him are going to be able to use that. So apparently now they have to pay over $1 million every time there's an event, a celebration of some sort at the White House, right? So, oh, thank you, Sue. I am dull. I know. I didn't get that. So thank you very much. So instead of them spending this money all the time, private donors like Trump and others have said, hey, let's put a ballroom in, a nice Shea nice thing in there, right? So they put something in, they're going to put something in the White House that is not only for the Trump administration, but is for subsequent administrations of people that hopefully we voted in there, unlike the last Yahoo that was put in, that they lied about 81 million votes. My tookus, 81 million votes. So that, Barry, is a very big difference. This president is doing it not only for his administration, but for every administration afterwards, that they will have a place in the White House to have these events. They won't have to put them on the lawn. They won't have to have a tent. They won't have to pay millions for all that stuff to get a temporary infrastructure put on the front lawn. They're going to have it built right into the White House. So, I mean, maybe you still don't agree with it. Maybe I haven't convinced you in any way, shape, or form. That's fine. But that's something that I think is a departure from the other presidents that did things to the White House, with the White House, that personalized it for them. I think I was going to go somewhere about Bill Clinton, but I won't. I'm going to let discretion get the better of me. Thank you very much for all of your accolades on that. Now, thank you, Sue, for the Brutus thing, the pen name of the Anti-Federalist Papers. I have read some of the Federalist Papers. I have not read the Anti-Federalist papers, but I'll tell you what I envision going forward, what I see, because the signs are there, is a devolution of the centralization of power. What was the biggest in our lifetime? The false flag, which was the 9/11 inside job. What it did was it allowed the usual suspects to centralize in the form of, let's say, DHS. Can we say DHS? The form of an interagency conglomeration that centralized much of the power of the federal agencies into a single funnel so that they would only have to own a few people at the top. And those directions to those few owned people would go all the way out to thousands upon thousands of federal employees. So that is a concentration of power. This whole world movement, right? Marcos, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. I hope all is well with you and yours. So Sue says, likely they don't spend enough of your money, our money, on their high muckety muck parties. I bet I could get a bathroom to put in on how much they spend on flowers alone. I bet you could. I bet you could. But remember, every nation does this. Every nation has something beautiful. I remember watching a video with Vlad Putin. Vlad, yeah, I had some vodka with him last week. I call him Vlad now. So Vlad vodka. I don't know if such a thing exists, but Vlad Putin was going through the Kremlin, and they had one of those cameras that was like on the carpet, the red carpet, and he's just turning these corners in the Kremlin, man, and it looks so cool. That's their official place of their government, and it looked really cool. It was not overly done. It wasn't gaudy and all that, but man, it looked classy. And that's what Trump wants our place to look like. They want to make it classy. After the Clinton Lewinsky thing, nobody thinks it's classy anymore. After the hot dog parties at the White House by the Obamas, Mr. and Mr. Obama, and anyone who knows what I'm talking about knows what I mean. I'm winking if you're driving a vehicle. If you know what those hot dog parties really were. And in fact, the hatchet woman, was Donnie there? No, Donnie was not with me and Vlad at that point. Not at all. Because, he doesn't drink. So anyway, you get what I mean about the hot dog parties, right? You do, right? You know what I know, right? Yeah, you do. You know exactly what they were all about. So anyway, those kind of things have sullied our White House. This guy comes in with like the most beautiful first lady ever, and she's a female. Can you believe that? She's actually female, which is awesome. So this beautiful woman, a real woman, named Melania Trump, she comes in completely ignored by the mainstream media, which is great. I don't want any of their dirty hands, on the photo of my beautiful first lady. So anyway, Big Mike is right, Barry. Man, did you see that one photo with the shoulders? They got that little diminutive Mr. Obama, and then you got the other Mr. Obama, and you're like, holy cow, that dude's big. Yeah, that's just one of them. And then when he's fixing the equipment, in sweatpants, we get that, right? Goes on the Ellen show, and you see hitting the front of the dress that shouldn't be there, but they're there. They're there, defying everything that people believed, and then you learn about Joan Rivers, who was just not around with us anymore after a couple weeks of saying some certain things. Anyway, I digress. The whole beautification of the White House, I think, it's something that is attempting to bring class back to our nation. We have been lacking class for so long. And remember, ladies and gents, the reason why Republicans hate Donald Trump, the reason why Democrats hate Donald Trump, is because he's not one of them. Not as a politician and not as a socialite. Was he a socialite? Yes. Are the pictures where, what's his crack, Epstein was in the shot? Yes. Yes. But he was never one of them. They went to his parties because he was rich. Right? They probably got free shrimp. I'd go if I was ever invited. Free shrimp and probably smoked salmon. But the fact of the matter is, free drinks, maybe even champagne. Anyone? Caviar? Anyone? So they would go to the parties. But if he was really one of them, and he fooled them, I think. Oprah even wrote Thank you, Barry. I won't say it live, but thank you. He was even in a letter, and I've read the letter, from Oprah to him before he really showed the fact that he's not like them. He is actually a patriot and not a you-know-what. I don't want to say it on Facebook. I just got off of their little whatever list. But he's not one of that. He's not one of them. Okay? So when they found that out, they all hated him, and they wanted to make sure that you hated him. So to this day, anybody who watches TV hates Donald Trump. Why? Because they watch TV. They could have 4 master's degrees, a PhD, and whatever other letter you want to put beside their name. But if they watch TV, wow. And maybe because they have those letters beside their name, maybe that's why they're all messed up. I don't know. Anyway, if he brings class back to the White House, if he brings class at the top, it hopefully will have some sort of effect on the people around him. And we do have to, as I think it was Nicholson in one of the Batmans, this town needs an enema. DC needs it more than any other town, maybe on Earth, but definitely in this nation. It is just a cesspool. It's the swamp times 10, right? But hopefully we can get that done. Because whether you believe it or not, the mandate of the people that put Donald Trump into office, the mandate of the people that ordered him to order all of the deportations, the mandate of the people given from us to him to sort that nasty, stinking sewer up, square it away, if you will, that mandate needs to be backed up by us. And that's why, some people say, oh, man, you're always on social media. You're picking fights. No, I respond to jackassery, sometimes with my own jackassery, but I respond to stupid comments, especially those from educated people. They've been so institutionalized that they no longer know how to think. They know what to think because the TV and the professors tell them what to think. And they just carry on the rest of their lives as puppets with a mindset that was programmed to them through school. SKUUL, school. So we need to make sure that other people know, and I know you guys are doing that to some degree or another, and we do need to be tactful. We need to try and be tactful, but some people are just a little bit too thick for tact. We just need to be nonviolent, of course. I am always nonviolent in these interactions on Facebook and any other social media. And that's why Facebook had to figure out and find a way to flag me, because they don't like what I'm saying, even though I didn't mention that certain nation and that certain people, that certain faith that people have that we cannot criticize. We can't criticize that nation in any way, shape, or form. We can't say anything other than worshipful adoration terms in such a light, because if we do, we will be they have their own 3-letter agency, right, that comes after anyone in any capacity for saying anything that even nears the truth about them. So what I'm trying to say is the beautification of our White House. And I know it's going to be beautiful. You guys know that. Say what you will about Donald Trump, but he doesn't do things half-assed. He's not going to make it look, stupid. It's going to look beautiful. I mean, have you seen the way the White House looks when Melania does the decoration as compared to others? And you know who I'm talking about. There is a woman's touch that cannot be replaced. Mr. Obama knows that. Both Mr. Obamas know that. So that's something that I'll take to the bank. Sue says, didn't you just say it was a good thing for competing philosophies? Of course I did. Of course I did say it was a good thing. But I would love if they came at these philosophies via organic thought, their own ideas, right? And I know we're all limited to our own ideas, and we all have influences throughout our growing lives. But when they're dictated to you through school, right, from grade 1 to grade 73, that some of these people go through? Television, music, movies, all of this, I guess you could wrap it up in the term media. All of this, the purpose of it is to dictate our thought process. Because if they can keep us on that reservation and they can keep a fence around our thought process, well, they can keep us from doing and saying and acting in ways that they don't want us to, so that the final thing, as we're finally into that chute that takes us to the butcher, we're, oh, wait a minute, those conspiracy theorists, they were right. You know, just before you get the jab, yeah, those idiots, they were going to say this was going to cut. Right? So, ladies and gents, there are competing philosophies, but make it your own, right? Karl Marx was a gray-bearded fat bastard well before you came on the scene. You don't have to completely give over to his thoughts, or one of his minions that, calls himself doctor and stands in front of 1,000 young people and brooks no desertion from the reservation of the thought farm that he's creating. Yeah, those people exist. And not just because I watched Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield and I watched him school that professor. I would have loved to have been that guy. In fact, I've toyed with going back to college, but they no longer serve beer there. And they make you show up at ungodly hours, like 9 a.m., So I'm not in for that. I'm not going to put myself in for that ass whooping. So all that to say, again, that the beautification of our country is as much in our hands as anybody else's. So as the communists go through and create havoc, as they're getting paid. Oh, there's another thing. We're almost done here, but there's another thing that I want to mention. Look it up. Don't believe me. I think it was New York City. All the No Kings protests, another distraction. All the No Kings protesters, right? The event ended at 1 p.m. Not just like gradually. It was like, ghost town. All their trash, because that's who they are. They left all part of them trash on the floor, on the ground. Gone by like 1:10. Over. Wrap it up. That's a wrap. All the equipment went back into the U-Hauls or the Penske's, went over to the storage units for the next No Kings protest that your stolen tax dollars are paying for, as Doge pointed out to us. So what happened? They're paid, ladies and gentlemen. This is not organic. Sure, maybe, yeah, some TV watchers got off their mom's couch, got into their friend's vehicle, or they got an Uber, and they went down there, and they didn't get paid because they're dunces. They're knuckleheads. They didn't, sign up to be paid. But the vast majority were gone because 1 o'clock was the stipulated end point of the event. And you weren't going to get paid past 1. So whatever time you rolled out of your mom's couch or off the futon that your dad bought in 1982, then you got up, you went there at 9 or 10 or whatever that, what have you, that chaos started. They weren't going to pay you past 1, so they're not going to stick around. Why would they stick around if they're not going to get paid? Right? All the signs are new, ladies and gentlemen. They're printed professionally, right? Everything is done professionally, including the media. When they go to a place where there's a lot of people, they're not going to show you the shot. All they have to do is turn the camera, a fraction, and you'll see nobody. So they'll focus on the little group of people that they assemble and make it look like, the ton of people showed up. For, and I say this in the nicest of terms, for a retarded event, I mean, you have to be in some form of retardation. And I'm not talking about those awesome and beautiful people that have real mental issues. They are God's children, as all of us are. But the people who do that to themselves by going to university and watching an abundance of TV, those are the people, okay? It's not just going to university, it's agreeing with those professors that really retards your ability to think for yourself. So it's the clinical term I'm using here. Paid protester sounds like a good side hustle. It does, Barry. And maybe it is. And perhaps one of these days we could kind of mingle. We can get in there like, FBI put 274 people to bust windows at January 6th. Now, you and I wouldn't do that because we're patriots. But we could get in there and maybe put some, I don't know, a turd in the punch bowl. How about something like that? Wouldn't that be cool? We could be, literal turds in the punch bowl of their, what have you, their stupid communist uprising, whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. It sounds like we could, we might want to toss this idea around. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It is a good side hustle for them. And if you look closely and you know who to look for on X or whatever, they'll show you the repeat offenders. So you'll see the same men and women at different protests throughout the country, maybe even throughout the world. They fly these people on your tax dollars. The Soros, you don't think Soros pays his own money to get this party started, do you? No, he doesn't. He steals via, these things that the current administration are trying to cut out of government. So we think, in a holistic, great approach that we're going to serve the world by helping the Aborigines learn how to play Parcheesi or some such thing that the government wants us to pay for. But we all know that it's not Parcheesi that we're talking about here. It's No Kings events and things of that nature. So even though it is a great thing to teach some sort of Ugandan citizen how to change him or herself into the opposite sex, even as noble as such a thing might that be, and yes, I am being sarcastic, we know that the real money, any money is going to fund this stupidity in our streets. So all that to say, we're always glad to be on. Joe and I are in this not for the money. I can tell you that. Joe's laughing too. We're not in this for the money. We're in it to hopefully start conversation, nonviolent conversation, Facebook. I'm not going to mention the name of that nation, just so you're happy. I'm not going to mention the people group that we're talking about, and it's not even a people group. It's not an ethnicity. It's a faith, and they have it. I don't. So what I'm going to say is thank you for listening. If you've been watching, thank you. If you've been participating, Sue, Barry, thank you very much. Dad, if you're still out there, goodbye, good night. I love you. I'll talk to you at some point soon, Lord willing. And I want to leave you with this. Our country is what it is because what we have or have not done. There's an expression that says all it takes for evil to triumph is when good men do nothing. We're doing something, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing something. It might not show right away, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Thank you for your participation. Just even if it's at barbecues where you're telling people, hey, wait a minute, man. It doesn't work that way, contrary to what the TV tells you. That kind of thing. It works. It won't change their mind, but it lets them know that there are sane people in the world. They won't think you're sane, but you're demonstrating perhaps for that person who's not actually voicing an opinion because they're on the fence. We want to win hearts and minds through nonviolence and logic, which Marxists don't understand. But those that are on the fence might actually respond. So I want to thank you for watching, listening, and participating. May God bless you. May God bless your endeavors for the betterment of others, yourself, your family, and the United States of America. God bless you and your family, and God bless America. The Otter's out. Have a great week.
This is the Bitcoin Otter Radio Show.